There's never...
Okay. All right. Well, listen, maybe you could just kind of cover a little bit before you got with Bob Wills and so forth. Just, a little bit of, sort of a biography on yourself, how you got up to that point, as far as in your playing career and so forth.
Well, I'll be as brief as I can, Scott. I just got home, I don't know, about 10 minutes or so ago from lunch, and I was, thinking about your call, and trying as best I could to anticipate what questions you might have, and figured that might be, one of them.
Okay.
And so, briefly, the only thing that is terribly important is just a common thread that runs through the period before I went to work with Bob.
Mm-hmm.
There was a common thread there, and it was this. Of course, when I graduated from high school up in Oklahoma, in Blackwell, Oklahoma, I had no thought, really no intentions. I had desire to go to college, but there was no way that I felt that I could go. Of course, I had a choice maybe of going to Oklahoma University down at Norman, which meant that, I would have to work. I'd have to work and pay my way through school.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be about my only bet because it was a state college and you had no tuition to pay. But that was sort of out of the business and really out of question. So I took a job in the glass plant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working there at the glass plant, local glass plant there in Blackwell, Oklahoma. And one day at noon, I was sitting out on the loading dock out there eating my lunch out of my little lunch bucket. And this fella by the name of Roy Smith came out, and he was all well dressed and everything, which would mean he wasn't a local boy. He was from Tulsa University.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat down and told me that they were organizing a Tulsa University dance band, 8-piece band, and they were going to call it the 8 Collegians. And they were going to make this thing up out of the different youngsters, across the state.
Mm-hmm.
There's a boy in, I think, Drumline, Oklahoma, that was going to play saxophone, and they had heard that for a high school graduate that I was probably the best dance drummer that they had heard about.
Mm-hmm.
So he was looking for a drummer. Well, he explained to me that, of course, the 8 collegians would get all of the school dances, and then that the university would serve as a sort of a booking agent
mm-hmm.
for the civic clubs in town. That they had their occasions, their parties, their annual dances, their this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and that they figured that they could get us enough work there in Tulsa, plus getting paid for the school dances, that we could pay our way through school.
Great.
And I never will forget that the first semester's tuition was $114, which seemed to me like quite a bit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Plus your room and board and all that stuff. And but anyway, it was a chance for me to go to college. And if he was right, it would be great. If he was wrong, I really hadn't lost anything, because if it didn't pan out the way he had it all drawn up, that Lord, I could come back home and go to work at the glass plant.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the only way I got to go to college, was by some manner, I don't know how, they had come to the conclusion, or they got information that I was probably the best. And I graduated from college, when I was 15.
15?
So, from high school.
High school, okay.
So I went to Tulsa in August and stayed at the Fidel House. He was a member of Fidel. And I had been playing weekly, for a couple of years, with the local city band,
mm-hmm.
which was, a bunch of grown men every Wednesday night while we would rehearse these marches and whatnot down in the basement of the Elks building. And every Friday night, the little round thing, down in the city park. We had a concert, which was free.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember, this is back in the 30s.
Right.
29.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to read. I could read snare drum parts. I could read bass parts and bass drum parts and so on. And so that was evidently where they got. And then I was playing around locally whenever I could at the Eagles Hall and whatnot. But anyway, I went to university, and so everything was worked out real fine. And in the second semester, one night I went down to a dance by a local band player, and just to hear somebody else play.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a drummer that was one of those stick twirlers,
Right.
He was a showman. I mean, he twirled sticks in both hands and everything else. But when they're up in the air, you're not playing in rhythm.
Yeah.
And my whole enjoyment from playing was to play a good, solid rhythm for the other boys in the bandstand that were playing lead, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
The brass section or the reed section or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never did care about showmanship. I cared about playing a solid beat.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up there, and this oh man, he was really showing off. Well, of course, I was, was known at least. And so they wanted me to set in. Well, I set in and played about 30 minutes. And I didn't twirl sticks. I didn't do anything. I just played solid rhythm for the other boys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that fella, whose name was Joe Lindy, he worked for an oil company there and just, played on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Played trumpet. He was a trumpet man. It was his band. He fired his drummer that night and gave me a job. Because they liked that rhythm instead of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that was where I started, really, you could say, professional, I guess. But then I wound up, I was playing with a hotel band there.
Mm-hmm.
We were playing luncheon music and dinner music, and then we played 3 dances a week in the hotel. Well, sufficient to say, well, Lord, I was making much money then. I didn't feel like I needed an education besides playing. Was more fun than going to school.
What were you studying, Smokey, in school? What did you want to what you want to learn in school?
I was majoring in English and psychology.
Uh-huh.
Because TU was really a petroleum school. Of course, Tulsa's the oil capital of the world.
Right.
But I had been raised up there in the oil fields around Blackwell and Three Sands and all that, and oil I didn't care anything about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I majored in English and psychology. And so I was playing in this hotel band, in tuxedos and all that stuff. But the common thread that I mentioned was that everything that I played at luncheon, dinner, or dances was written. That was when you used to go to Jenkins' music store there and you'd buy an orchestration on any given tune.
You could buy it for a whole band?
For the whole band, see.
Wow.
And really those things, if this is of any interest to you,
yeah,
you could go to Jenkins' music store, which was really the only one there, but Jenkins Music is still a big music company. You pay 75 cents for an orchestration. Well, the cotton-picking thing was about at least a half-inch thick. There was piano score, and there was score there for at least 4 violins, and a full reed section, 3 trumpets and a trombone, and the whole bit. Well, we didn't have all those.
Mm-hmm.
So we would just take out the pieces that we needed. And for our group, but we played everything was red. Okay, the fellow that always that did the arranging of those things everything was cut and dried and very distinct.
Mm-hmm.
On occasion, it would be written, it would be an 8-beat that, in other words, was designed to give a shuffle rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
To maybe it was a sax, maybe it was a trumpet section or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in other places, it would be what we call a 2/4. That wasn't Dixieland, but it was still just a 2/4 because we used not bull fiddles, we used bass horns then.
Wow.
You know.
Yep.
And when you got on tune like Song of India,
mm-hmm.
Chinatown, China Boy, we had arrangements on all of those, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really got up and really wanted to get with it, why then your bass drum was written 4 beats to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
What we call 4 beats. If you really wanted to swing and get with it. And so there were different types of rhythm. There was 4 beat, there was 2 beat, there was Dixieland, which is a 2 beat on the bass, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like a rim shot or a wood block, which was common then.
Right.
For a Dixieland. But all these types or styles of rhythm, they were distinct and separate from another style. And secondly, they were always written.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was playing this hotel band, and Bob Wills approached me. Somewhere along the road, I had gathered the reputation of being the best dance drummer in town. And Bob came to me in late 34. And he wanted me to come play drums with him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that time, his type of music had 2 names. It was either a fiddle band or a string band.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That's the only way you referred to them. String band or fiddle band.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not use drums. It had no use for a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And because their rhythm was a bass fiddle and a banjo, which was the basic rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Now you add a guitar to that, well, he kind of helped it a little. And the piano player, if he wasn't taking a course, well, then the piano player played rhythm, just chords. So the rhythm section at its high point included the bass fiddle and the banjo and the guitar and the guy chording on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also at that time, the way you played a bass fiddle in a string band or a fiddle band was you pulled or you noted the bass fiddle on the first and the third beat in a bar, you know.
Was like slapping?
Yeah, then he slapped it
right
on the 2 and 4 beat.
Ah.
So, you know, he pulled it, slap, 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 slap,
mm-hmm.
slap. Well, really, they didn't play 4/4 on the bass fiddle because, first place, it was too hard on their fingers, and in second place, they couldn't do anything with it. You know?
Yeah.
It just sounded like a bunch of thumping.
Mm-hmm.
But if they pulled and slapped and pulled and slapped, pulled and slapped. Well, when they slapped, you know what it was that bass string slapping against the neck of the bass fiddle, which made a click sound. And that was the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came to me, I said, what in the hell do you want with a drummer in a fiddle band? I thought he'd lost his mind. And he said, I want to take your kind of music and my kind of music and put them together and make it swing.
Okay. Let me, if I can, now, who are you listening to as far as, you know, like what bands, because obviously you and Bob were playing 2 different kinds of music. Were there any specific bands or musicians that you were listening to, and maybe the band that you were with were copying or trying to emulate the styles of a particular groups?
This may go back beyond your time. I don't know how old you are.
I'm pretty good. I'm a walking encyclopedia of a lot of this stuff.
Okay. Sonny Greer.
Sure, I know Sonny.
Sonny Greer was a drummer with Duke Ellington.
Right.
at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonny, you know, hell, he didn't weigh 130 pounds soaking wet.
Right.
And he was one of my favorite drummers.
Mm-hmm.
But my bands were Duke, Basie, McKinney's Cotton Pickers. I don't know whether you remember that.
Sure. Yep.
McKinney's Cotton Pickers was a 28-piece colored band.
28?
They had 28 pieces.
Wow.
You know, Duke had a band about that size, too.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And so those were my people. Those were the people I looked at.
Okay. Had you ever met Sonny during that time?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, you just do when you hero worship somebody.
Right.
And I was in Oklahoma City, and one of the high points of my life was out at the Crystal Lake, I think was the name of it, at Oklahoma City. McKinney's Cotton Pickers were playing out there. You know, then we had huge ballrooms.
Right.
And they were there. Well, that was my first chance to see and hear McKinney's Cotton Pickers in person.
Mm-hmm.
So you know where I wound up, on the back of the stage back there.
Right.
And here's this 28-piece band. Now, you talk about swing and get it. I mean, they win. And the drummer, I can't recall his name now.
I'm trying to think who played with them, yeah.
But he had a bass and a snare and a sock and one cymbal. That's it. Sitting back there behind that whole band. And that's all equipment that he had.
Man.
And there was where I developed the statement. Because I use it all the time now, Scott.
Yeah.
When I walk in, you know, because I don't own a set of drums now.
You don't?
No, I haven't owned a set of drums since 1941.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in it. Because I don't travel on the bus. I fly everywhere I go. And we go to Nashville or Los Angeles or wherever the hell we go.
Mm-hmm.
You just call ahead, tell them that you want a set of drums. As an example, Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
You call. The guy in the van brings a set of drums. He'll bring tom-toms, floor toms, and every damn thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
5 times as much as anybody can play. And he'll set them up. I go in with my sticks and my brushes, and I sit down and I play for 2 hours, and I get up, put my sticks and my brushes back in the pocket, and he tears them down, puts them back in the cases, back in the van. It's always $25. So what's the point of owning anything?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you can't haul them on the airplane. I mean, airlines, you're up a creek trying to do a thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Chet Atkins won't, Chet buys a seat for his guitar. He's not about to give it to somebody to throw around.
That's right.
And so, anymore, when I walk on the bandstand, there's a whole damn row of tom-toms and everything, you know, and the kids will say, you know, I hope you like my set of drums. And I'll say, well, now look, son, I come to a conclusion years ago that the more drums a guy has got, the less he's apt to play. Because that drummer was McKinney Cotton Pickers. And Sonny Greer had a pretty decent set of drums, but you really not what the kids have today. But he played everything he had.
Right. Yeah.
And the little fellow was so short and so little, Sonny damn near had to stand up to play. And that was where I learned that you didn't have to have a whole lot of drums around you to play a damn good rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Because that McKinney's Cotton Pickers, they would just get and go. Well, then Earl Hines, you know, those were my people.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the people that I listened to and copied and enjoyed.
Now the plan was different too, because at that time, to swing a band, there was not like today where the ride cymbal is the main. You were playing a lot of press rolls on
press rolls.
Yeah.
Press roll with either a straight rim shot,
mm-hmm.
you know, on 2 and 4 beat,
mm-hmm.
or when I went to work with Bob, you know, I'd play a press roll with a rim shot in that press roll on the 2nd and 4th beat.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I took a course, I've got a damn tape over here that the guy sent me a week or 10 days ago. I take a whole course on drums and don't play anything but press roll.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm playing syncopated rim shots with both hands.
Mm-hmm.
through that press roll. And that was the way you played. You played press rolls. You played your drums. You didn't just get up there and ride a cymbal or make a hell of a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
Because the boys that I admired were the boys that played rhythm, that played their drums. And if they set something up, they didn't set it up for the crowd to look at.
Mm-hmm.
They set it up to play it.
Right. To feel it. Yeah. So now, well, Bob, now his background, I mean, he listened a lot of blues, but it was different. I mean, am I right on that? I mean, was he coming out of a more country type of music?
Well, no. The one thing that was true with all of the musicians in Bob's band.
Mm-hmm.
Was they had the freedom. Bob didn't tell them what to play. There wasn't anything written.
There was nothing written?
Oh, no. No, there was, later on, San Antonio Rose, it was written.
Mm-hmm.
But we played it a long time before it was ever written.
So it was like the Basie band, everything was head arrangements.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that made me, well, of course, when Bob asked me that, I thought he'd lost his mind. But the heck of it was, I had the best job there was in Tulsa by far.
Mm-hmm.
I played luncheon music, dinner music each night, and played 3 nights dances up in the Topaz room there.
Mm-hmm.
I got my room and my board at the Tulsa Hotel. And I got, on top of all that, I got $15 a week in money. Well, that was a hell of a good job.
Yeah?
Bob offered me $55 a week. And I wondered where the hell he was going to get it. I never did work a week for Bob for $55.
You never did?
No.
Always less?
No, I worked for Bob 6 weeks. We were, of course, then, see, he paid his band every night after that.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go eat, and he and Mr. Mayo, the business manager, O.W. Mayo took the tickets, and done all that. And they go back at the table, and they'd count up what they'd made, lay so much aside for the expenses, and then they lay so much aside for nest egg, for operating capital.
Right.
Okay, then we split the rest of it. So I'd been with Bob about 6 weeks. And when they get all figured out, Mayo would decide, what each man had coming. Why, then we'd be up there eating ham and eggs or whatever, and he'd call us one at a time. We'd go back and we'd get our money, So I went back in this cafe in Enid, Oklahoma. I never will forget it. And Bob said, Dacus, he said, what am I supposed to be paying you? I said, well, you told me you were going to pay me $55 a week. And he said, well, what have I been paying you? Well, I said, oh, anywhere from 65 to 70. Getting it every night like that.
Mm-hmm.
He turned around to Mayo, and he said, Mayo, that ain't no good. He said, let's raise his salary to $65 a week. So, okay, then. I was supposed to get 65, but we were doing better all the time,
Uh-huh.
So, it was about 6 weeks later. It was 6 or 7 weeks, almost the same length of time.
Mm-hmm.
Bob asked me the same question. He said, what am I supposed to be paying you? I said, well, over in Enid, you said you're going to move it up to $65 a week. He said, what have I been paying you? I said, oh, anywhere from 80 to 90. He said, well, that ain't no good. Let's raise him to 90.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Man.
And there were some nights
yeah.
that I would get maybe $90 in one night. I remember one night in Oklahoma City, we went out to some people's house, which we did all the time,
Mm-hmm.
They would invite us out to eat after we played. And so they would go through this same process, whether we went to somebody's house or whether we went to a cafe. So Mayo and Bob would get off, and they would count the money up and take off, you know, what they had a set percentage of that they worked on all the time, never did know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it includes expenses of that trip, and then also a given amount, you know, for operating capital.
Mm-hmm.
Which that applied to every job. But I never will forget that night. He gave me $110 that night.
Whew.
So that was the way it worked all the time. But the other thing on the music side of it, that put me in the position of being the first drummer in country music.
Right.
There never was, at no time, was there ever a sheet of music on the bandstand.
Now,
Myself, as a piano player, and Eldon Shamlin,
mm-hmm.
that played guitar.
Right.
Those were the only three people that ever sat down on the bandstand. Leon stood up. Leon McCullough.
Right.
He had a dobro guitar with a strap around his neck.
And he stood up all night?
He stood up all night. The fiddle player stood up all night. And even Scott, when we added horns to the group, they all stood up.
They never sat down?
Never sat down, no.
Was that mostly for the show, or what was the reason?
It was just the way we worked. Because, you know, we played, just one tune after another. And when Bob picked up his fiddle, we could almost tell the way that is. Eldon Shamlin quoted it one time. Somebody said, how could you tell what Bob's going to play? Eldon said, well, if you was one of the old hands, if you were around there long enough, when he picked up his fiddle, you could tell what he's going to play. And you know, he would just hit a kind of an upbeat
mm-hmm.
with his fiddle bow.
Right.
And when he come down, he was playing it, and the rhythm was already set. But nobody sat down.
Wow.
Orange, nobody. Eldon sat down, playing standard. Piano player sat down, and I sat down. Everybody else on the bandstand, including Leon McCullough. Leon McCullough still stands and plays. He doesn't sit down.
Wow. Now, and how long would you play, like on a night? How many hours a night?
We play 9 to 1.
With what, like 40 minutes on, 20 minutes, 40 minutes on, 20 off, or?
Oh, no. We get on at 9, we get off at 1.
No breaks?
No. Intermission. Now, anybody, this Bob was like this.
Mm-hmm.
I was one. I like to dance.
Right.
And, maybe some girl would be there, somebody that I knew or whatever. If I wanted to dance, then I would get down and dance with Tommy Duncan. He'd sit down and beat drums while I went down and danced. We all had that kind of freedom.
Right.
And when we play squares, Leon McCullough, he loves a square dance.
Mm-hmm.
So, boy, the minute we call a square, well, down he'd go, you know. But as far as the band is concerned, it kept operating from 9 to 1 right down the road.
What kind of a schedule did you have to rehearse that band, to work up there?
We did our noon program every day at 12:30.
Right.
You know. Well, now, on Thursday night and on Saturday night, we played in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
At Kane's Ballroom, where we did our noon program.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, on Thursday and on Saturday, since we weren't going out of town, if somebody had an idea, that they wanted to work on, or somebody had an idea, wanted to learn a new tune, then we might spend 30 or 45 minutes. Most of the rehearsal was oral,
mm-hmm.
rather than by instruments, because there wasn't anything written anyway. You told somebody, well, why don't you play it this way? Well, you play this, and I'll play this, okay, and so we made them up. You know, we didn't write them. We made them up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned a while ago, Father Hines, Earl Hines.
Right.
Well, Bob loved blues tunes. He loved blues music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Earl Hines' band, his recording of Rosetta, well, boy, was absolutely one of my tops.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob decided that he wanted to learn Rosetta. Well, by then, now this was getting up in like 37 or 8, you know. Bob had a great big 2-story house because all his family lived with him. All his sisters and brothers and Aunt Lou and Uncle Pink and all of the whole bunch. So he had that great big house. And we'd go out to Bob's and rehearse on a night, you know.
Right.
Like we were off. And which had to be on like on a Sunday night or something. If we hadn't played a theater someplace that day. So, okay, Bob wanted me to bring my old 78 of Earl Hines Rosetta. Well, Bob lived right on the northwest corner of 2nd Peoria in Tulsa. Now, right straight across the corner on the southeast was one of these little long, 1-story grocery stores. Just a flat roof. So, okay, I brought my record, and so Bob played it. He's learning the words. And the melody and all of it. But he kept breaking meter. And so after about 30 minutes of that, he kept breaking meter when he'd sing Rosetta. He'd hold it too long.
Right.
After about 30 minutes of that, I couldn't stand it anymore. And I'd been there about 3 years then. I went over to the phonograph machine and I took that 78 of Earl Hines off there. And I started to the front door. I said, Bob, you've got the right to play anything you want to play, but you do not have the right to mutilate. And I walked out on the front porch and I sailed that 78 catty corners across the street. And it come down on top of that grocery store over there. And we laugh about it till plumb yet, because as far as we know, it's still laying up there. He just wasn't going to tear Earl Hines' band up like that.
Did he ever get it right?
No.
He never did.
Never did. And he never got it the same way twice. Because, you know, there's 32 bars in standard course.
Right.
Depending on how big a breath he got when he sang Rosetta, it might wind up, you know, with like 31 bars.
Yeah.
The next night it might wind up 31 and a half. But the next time we played it might wind up 33 and a half. You could check with Al Smith, the piano player.
Yeah.
See, Al came to work in September of 35. And Al tells this story. I don't know if you've ever read it in his book or not. He wrote, you know, My Years with Bob Wills. But he tells it. We have a lot that we laugh about. And Al said, you know, when he came in the band, he sat right off to my left. I said, okay, son, look. Now, there's a lot of meter breaking that goes on here. And you watch this sock cymbal. And if you're wondering where the offbeat is, that sock cymbal will tell you. And I developed a reputation, Scott. This is the truth. You know, I could change beats.
Right.
Three or more times in the course of a tune. But we all had fun doing it then.
Yeah. That must have, I mean, if you were coming from a position of reading everything to all of a sudden be thrown into a band like that where you're totally depending on your ears, was that a difficult switch for you to do? That's the good part of the story, Scott. And as soon as I tell you the good part, then I'll tell you the hard part. Okay.
You see, what I didn't know was what it was like to have the freedom of playing whatever you felt like playing. You know, there was no sheet of music there that said you play this here, you play this here, you play this here. You know, you do it this way. You play whatever you felt like. You played, Bob played, all of us played, all together by feeling. And it was great. I never looked at a piece of music in all the years I was with Bob. I could watch somebody dance out there, I watched somebody fighting over there on the corner or whatever. You know. I didn't anything to look at. There was no straitjacket that you had to stay in.
Right.
You played whatever you felt like. An example of that, years later, when Johnny Gimble went to work with him. Johnny tells this one and just laughs about it. Johnny said the first night, Bob came over to me and said, all right, son. He said, when I point this fiddle bow at you, I want you to play everything you know. And turn around and walk back over to, in front of the band. And old Gimble just, standing there thinking, my Lord, Bob turned around and walked back over to him and says, but if you want to play the lead, then you play.
Yeah.
You played whatever you wanted to play. Now, if he liked it, he let you know. If he didn't like what you played, he let you know. But you had the freedom to improvise or play anything you wanted to. Now that was to me, it was great. And I discovered for the first time that when I was, like 11 years old, I had learned to play green corn, bringing in the Jimmy John on a 5-string banjo. I was brought up on country music in the first place. But I was a country boy going to town,
Right.
And when I went to work with Bob, I didn't know it, but I realized I was back playing the kind of music that I really liked. And on top of that, I didn't have to read it because it wasn't even written. That was great. But I played a lot of Dixieland.
You did?
Particularly when we would play at a nightclub or something.
Right.
Before I went to work with Bob. And maybe we had a bad night. Maybe there wasn't nobody there. Okay, we'd shut down, 11 or 12 o'clock. The place was empty. Because all we were getting were our tips anyway.
Right.
So we'd go over to another nightclub where some of the other boys were playing. And we'd sit there and play with them. When they shut down at 1 or 2 o'clock, there was a bunch of us at that point that lived in the Bliss Hotel. And we'd go back to the Bliss Hotel and jam till daylight. And in those cases, when you were jamming, I played a lot of Dixieland because I loved it. Okay, when I went to work with Bob, what the hell do you play? There's nothing there that tells you what to play. There's nobody in front of you that gives you any indication of what you were supposed to play. And I fought it terribly hard. I'd play a press roll on some tunes would work fine, Scott.
Right.
Then on Maiden's Prayer or something like that, you didn't play press roll. I went to the wire brushes, in both hands. And played smooth, swishy, hotel, easy brushes. And so different styles would work on different tunes. But what do you play that is basic with all the tunes? And I just went blood over that, Scott. The only thing that I knew for sure is that the banjos, he played on the offbeat, just clank, clank. If you've never heard a banjo, it goes clank, clank, clankety, clank, clank, clank.
Yeah, I've heard them.
That's all there is to it.
Right.
That's why I ain't that crazy about banjo players. And the bass fiddle, he didn't play 4-beat. If I played 4-beat, I was playing 4-beat by myself on my bass drum. But you see, whether or not you could do anything on a bass fiddle in the string band was how hard you could slap it.
Right.
That was where the rhythm was. So when I listened to that slap on the bass fiddle, I began to notice I could be way up front. Maybe I'd got down to dance or something, and I had went up there and got a Coke or something up at the bar. When I couldn't hear the rest of the music very well, I could still hear the slap of that bass fiddle. Because, frankly, I didn't understand its being. But it was the frequency of that slap, the tonal frequency, that just cut like a knife. You could hear that. You could hear the slap of that bass fiddle 2 blocks from the dance hall. That's all you could hear 2 blocks from the dance hall, but you could hear that.
Yeah.
And so that slap and the banjo, they played together. But when Ellen came in the band, then he played rhythm guitar and choked. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
He choked the second and fourth beat. Okay, now my problem was, okay, now what do you play? Because like I said, I had come up playing in this concert band before I ever graduated from high school, when the main objective there is to take 70 pieces and make it sound like one. You know, a symphony is supposed to be that way. You don't hear a single instrument, you hear the whole thing. So, with that in my mind, I took a brush in my left hand and played on 2 and 4. And that brush, it blended with the choke of the guitar, with the slap of the banjo, or the whack of the banjo, and the slap of the bass. Well, that left my right hand free to do whatever I want to, blow my nose or whatever. And so I did. I would play simple, or I would close my sock cymbal and play on my sock with my right hand with it closed, still playing my left hand with a brush underneath it. I didn't take much of that till I learned. Hell, I could play on all 4 beats with my brush. It just added a little bit to the first and third beat. But in other words, it was a matter of accent, you know. I didn't accent the first and third, but yet you could feel it in other things. Again, it was a situation of frequency.
So what were you playing on the closed hi-hat? What rhythm?
The same standard rhythm, you know, like a bounce rhythm.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I would play that on the sock cymbal, but
with a brush or a stick?
With a stick.
With a stick.
With a stick. And the downbeat, first and third beat, on top of the closed sock was just a click. That's all it was. But when I hit the second and fourth on the closed sock, well, then it had that
right,
just melted into the rhythm guitar. And so that's where then I finally found out. I had to figure it out. What I could play on drums that matched every other rhythm instrument in the band. And I still play. We were playing in Austin, Scott. Here it's been a year ago. And there was a big, in San Antonio, K-Buck. He got his big thing down there. There was about 5 or 6 bands. And Tom Paul Glazer was there. And all these kids, when it come time for us to play, all these kids, there were 6 of them standing off out there on the wing, up there watching me play. And Tom Paul called me down to his room the next morning. He said, "Well, come down here. I got something to tell you." I went down there, and he and Leon McCullough sat down there, because they've been great friends for years. He said, "You notice them bunch of drummers standing off over there in the wings watching you?" I said, "Yeah, I don't know what the hell they expected to see, but they was all over there watching me." They said, "I wish you'd look at that old man up there. He playing a brush in one hand and stick in the other. And you can't do that. Because the brush is a hell of a lot lighter than the stick."
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So you got a different weight in each hand. But way back there in the 30s, Scott, I had to learn how to compensate for that different weight. And the drummer kids today, night before last in Austin.
Yeah.
I walked in Tandy White, this band was there. And, you know, we were a problem. So I asked him, of course, I had used this kid's drums once before. And I asked him, I said, "Is it all right if I use your drums if I don't play an A or any of them damned offbeat keys?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "You got any brushes?" He said, "I got one." I said, "Hell, one's all I ever need anyway."